And we are live here, and we are doing the 12 o'clock noon Leadership Gold Mastermind with David Patterson, Scott Fogelman, TJ. I can never pronounce your last name, but TJ is all you need to know, really. He's the mortgage guy. And I think that Krista Layton will be joining us.
Okay, that is awesome. Awesome. Hope everybody's had a good week. Let's start with lesson 15, which is leaders distinguish themselves during touch. No, actually, I think we're on 16 now.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. People quit people, not companies. You know, I didn't even need to read this chapter to know how true it was, just in my personal life.
Which leads you to the second lesson, which is experience is not always the best teacher.
Right, unless we take time to evaluate the experience that we had with people that made us want to quit. So there's a lot of loaded statements with that. So if we start on page 145 today, there's a simple question that is asked, and that is, who do people quit? And number one is people quit people who devalue them. It's one thing to say that you value someone. It's another one to actually show it. And I believe that sometimes when there is not interaction between a leader and that person's followers, even though that leader might not be saying anything negative towards those people, if there is not a relationship that is built, that in terms with some people that might not feel as secure in themselves and value themselves and have a very negative picture of themselves, they might tell themselves a story that says that that leader does not value them. So sometimes inaction is an action, and it can be translated in that person or that organization does not value me. And so the quote that's over on page 146 says, it is impossible to add value to someone we devalue. So for anybody on the call, when you read the title of this lesson, People Quit People, Not Companies, and understanding that one of the reasons people quit is because they feel devalued, did a personal experience come up that triggered some reflection about evaluated experience?
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, I've had experiences like you are talking about, you know. But I read here it says 60% of people leaving companies do so because of their managers.
Mm-hmm.
And I have recently, well, in this industry, people change brokerages like they change their underwear, you know. And so, I mean, I could give you reasons why I would want to leave my particular brokerage, but the good outweighs the bad. I mean, if I was nitpicky about stuff, I could come up with the good reasons, you know.
Right.
But and oftentimes, you know, as a brokerage, you know, we try to put on a happy smile and welcome all the new people, and then when you get in there, you realize what it's really all about is not exactly as wonderful as one would think it is, would like to think it is. And I think where as a leader, I think I was on a call this morning about transparency. You know, people will follow you because you're real, you know, not this thing that you're trying to create, you know, that you are, you know, just be real, just be yourself. Because, you know, if you aren't an honest person, you can't pretend you are. If you don't have any integrity, you can't pretend you do. You just be who you are, you know. And if you're not honest and you don't have integrity, then you need to change the way you think, because it's the thinking that changes the behavior.
Right.
So, yeah, it's see those leaders who pretend they have the integrity or attempt to have be honest, but you know, eventually everyone sees through that. So just, you know, be, do, have. So, you know, or have, be, do. Is that it? Be, do, have.
Be, do, have.
So, you know, change the way you think, and then the actions will follow that, and people will follow that.
Nanette, let me put something out in the atmosphere on this, and I want to get your thoughts on it. And TJ or Scott, you guys can chime in. A word that is very easily used and challenging to practice is this word called integrity. And I was having a conversation with one of my mentors one time, and there was two things that came out of it. Number one was, there are times that people use that word when it's convenient, and that conveniency is usually when they're pointing the finger at someone else's actions or using the cover of an organization's missions, values, and beliefs. Okay. The other challenge is, if someone really doesn't know who they are, how can you operate in integrity and authenticity if you're still determining who you are? There are people that make decisions and make commitments to things, and at that time, they didn't really understand what they were doing because they didn't really understand who they were, right? So do we hold them accountable to decisions that were made in the past when they really didn't understand who they were? As they were growing, they started to understand and have a different perspective of who they are and what their calling was. But there's this group of people that want to continue to hold people to the old standard of what they committed to, even when they didn't really understand who they were. So is that a rational thought around those two things? Because I think that for a leader to, so like, for example, people quit people, not companies. Is it sometimes the leader and people quit that leader? Or is it sometimes that people quit because they start to determine who they are and say, okay, now that I understand more about who I am, I don't know that I can properly align with this person or this organization. You on mute, Nanette?
It did say 60% or 65%. So there's another 35% out there that, you know, as hopefully we're growing and changing and becoming more who we are. And please don't hold me accountable to anything I said or did when I was 20. Lord, you know. Oh, don't get at me there. But, you know, and when I find myself in other compromising situations, like don't take pictures of me after 9 p.m., that kind of thing. But, you know, yeah, it's only 30, but that 35% is probably 20 to 30% is probably somebody that's moving directions because they know more about themselves and want to align themselves. Majority of people, you and I both know, don't do that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, there's not many people that would necessarily be growth focused, and so a lot of that is determined by: are you in a growth environment? Are you reading books to grow? Who are the people that are around you? Are they challenging you to grow? So there's a lot of indicators of whether or not that is part of who they are and where they want to be. Scott, any thoughts about that first kind of like dialogue around people quitting people and the integrity, authenticity conversation?
Scott, you're muted.
You're muted, Scott, I think.
Okay, I think someone muted me back. So,
Yeah.
So, in one of the things, one of the great quotes from Bold is, we judge other people by their actions and we judge ourselves by our intentions. And so, when you talk about the integrity, it's, we can be quick to judge other people's integrity when, I guess, if you're not really adherent to the standard, then you're still expecting other people to. I think it's a really good quote. I also think about people giving up on people, the devaluation of people. You see it in where managers kind of, I won't say degrade, but they don't listen to feedback. They don't want feedback when you get it from their employees, and the employees don't feel like they make a difference and don't take ownership of things.
Yeah, I think that in itself is a great way for leaders to demonstrate value in other people by helping them or allowing them to contribute to a decision-making process, for lack of a better term. That might not be the final decision that's made, but at least that they feel like their voice is being heard. And I think leaders really underestimate the value of followers having a voice. I think rational people do not expect to have everything that they say go into the plan. Yet they just want to be able to feel like that they have a say at the table. I think that one of the most powerful things that can happen to make people feel valued is, number one, remember their name, and number two, allow them to have a voice. And I think the reason why that is such a powerful thought is because what's two of the first things that we came to this world with? The name our mother gave us and our ability to speak. And so those are things that we're going to always treasure. Krista, good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing great, David. Thank you.
Why do people quit other people?
Are you asking me?
Uh-huh. I thought I'd just throw you right in it.
They're too much of an effort. They take up too much time, or they are negative energy.
Have you experienced that recently?
Oh, you really are putting me on the hot seat.
No names. We'll protect the guilty.
Yes, I have. And I find that certain people, I got this actually from Oprah. It's like, just, get rid of the negative energy. If there's people that are too hard in your life, you need to make yourself more comfortable. And not that everything's going to be easy, but just, if they're draining you and they're just making everything harder emotionally, it could be physically, it could be anything. Let them free and free yourself.
Wow. Powerful. TJ, any thoughts from the commentary so far? Hit your mute button again, bud.
Nanette remuted me. But yeah, I agree with everybody so far. People, I think the majority of the reason why people leave is because of the way their managers or others at the company. I don't even think it's necessarily always managers. I think it can often be coworkers too, where if you're not getting along with them, even if you have a great manager, sometimes it's still hard to stick around at a business. And so I think that's the reason. I know we already talked about the numbers, how 60-something% of them leave because of that. But I think that's something we talked more about the managers, but I think it also does, coworkers do come into play as well.
Yeah. Yeah. TJ, just to kind of go back a little bit, would you consider yourself having individuals that are currently on your team right now?
As far as business?
Yeah, or are you pretty much a one-man shop right now?
Yeah, I've got a production manager, Seth, that helps me. And then, well, he's here in my office, and then I've also got a processor that's remote, and then I've got underwriters and stuff that I work with. So I really do have a team of people that I work with to make loans happen.
On page 146 and 147, the second point in terms of reasons why people quit people is people quit people who are untrustworthy. And Michael Winston at the time of Countrywide was saying that effective leaders ensure that people feel strong and capable. TJ, one of the things that's come up in our reading is something called the 360-degree leader, which allows individuals who are the followers to kind of give input into the leaders in terms of how things are going. Not to put you on the spot, it's just more of a growing thing. Have you been intentional about talking to your team about how we can do better and how I can do better to further along where it is that we want to go? And what does that look like?
Yeah, I try and get together with Seth every other Friday. First thing in the morning, we meet and we just talk about how things are going, what things we can improve on. I just make sure that he's happy and things are going well. I guess I don't necessarily ask for specific feedback on myself, but just I think the process in general, and making sure that everything is going well.
What is one thing that you feel like you might need to improve from a leadership standpoint that your followers or team members could give you some input in?
I'm sure there's a lot of things. Let's see. Probably listening. I'm kind of a fast-paced person where I want to, I've always got a long list of things I need to do, and there's times where I'm just like, spit it out, let me know what I need to know so I can keep, moving through and being productive. So I would say that's probably one of the things is slowing down and making sure I'm taking time to listen, and not just listen, but to actively listen and respond. Because a lot of times, you're listening while you're checking emails or texting or, thinking about the million other things you need to be doing.
Right. So the third of the 4 why people quit people was people quit people who are incompetent. So Nanette, has there ever been a time that you felt like that you worked under someone that was incompetent, and how did you handle that situation?
There has never been a time that I haven't thought that, but
we might need to back up to the ego section of this book.
I am here for your entertainment.
It's working.
So you should have a lot of experience to share with us in terms of how you operate.
I could write the book. Okay. Yes, the short. Yeah, sure. And that's really difficult. So in situations like this, like I work for the seller, I work for the buyer, and the seller is a good example. The seller who knows everything, and has 3 houses in their lifetime. And and that's conservative, and they know everything, and they know how to get that property marketed to, they think that buyer is in New York City, So anyway, so here we are in a situation where I have my boss, my seller, knows more than I do, supposedly. So I have to take it back to, I was reading this morning, How to Be a People Person. And it was John Maxwell's book. I don't think it's how to. It's something about being a people person. And so I've never really considered myself a people person, but one of the things he says there in the beginning of the chapter, the first chapter, is that we treat people the way that we want to be treated. People want to be encouraged and people want to be appreciated. Okay. Just like I want to be encouraged and I want to be appreciated. So in situations like that, and I want to be listened to. Right. And so and if I want people to follow me, then I need to listen and appreciate them and encourage them because they want the same thing I want. And the people follow me because I listen to them, I encourage them, and I appreciate them. And so the same is true. I just give back what I want in that situation. Yet, so if they want, it doesn't really matter what they know or what they don't know. It's not going to, what they know is not going to get the house sold. So I don't need to worry about it. But I do need to listen to them. I do need to appreciate them. And I still need to respect them and just treat them like I'd want to be treated. And this is something that, is universal. It's simple. It's been going on since the first century, So, and I'll take you to church on that, but there you go.
Yeah. It's interesting because I like the way that you put a spin on that, because as real estate professionals, we are working for the client. And so there are going to be a lot of times, I'll say most times, where there is certain levels of incompetency with regards to handling this. And so you can be incompetent and ignorant, or incompetent and cooperative, right? In being able to approach it from the standpoint of, I'm hiring you because I lack the confidence and or the skill to make this transaction happen, versus sometimes people double down on their incompetence and try to maybe bring ego or charisma or some sort of presence, for lack of a better term, that overshadows the incompetence that might be there. On page 148, it was the quote of, leaders need to inspire confidence, and they do that not with charisma, but with competence. And I think one of the things that we can do to make people feel valued is pouring into them, developing them. And so instead of TJ, just using you as an example, instead of TJ pointing out, hey man, this was wrong, or this shouldn't have been gone this way, whatever the case may be, it's TJ taking a moment of reflection and saying, what piece of information do I need to pour into him? What questions do I need to ask? And walk through a scenario to instill empowerment as well as competency, so that won't occur the next time. It's amazing how we can say the same things two different ways and get two different results. So I think part of inspiration is bringing competence to in what we do, but also in helping others become more competent, because when we help more people become competent, they want to continue to follow the leader because they're growing underneath that leader. Okay. Scott, number 4, people quit people who are insecure. Have you experienced any insecurity in leadership in the past, present or future?
Yeah, I mean, I guess people will have that at different times, and I know a lot of people actually do have little bits of insecurity. As far as seeing it in leaders, you kind of I don't know. So like the leaders who maybe are going through emotional stuff or whatever they're going through, that they have this, they still kind of talk to you on the side about whatever's going on in their personal lives, and then the doubts that they have, and I've actually seen leaders who are kind of so insecure that they try and play the employee each other. and it just creates kind of a really bad situation.
You know, I posted this on my Facebook page because I had a conversation with someone on yesterday about their interaction with the leader. I won't mention the organization or the industry. I'll just say that it was really well timed in preparing for the mastermind that this quote came up at the bottom of 148. It says, some insecure leaders are easy to spot. Their desire for power, position, and recognition comes out in an obvious display of fear, suspicion, distrust, or jealousy. Exceptional leaders do two things. They develop other leaders, and they work themselves out of a job. People want to work for leaders who fire them up, not who put out their fire. And so, Krista, you were talking about environment, right? And people impacting your energy.
Yes.
And wanting to be protective of that. The last time that we talked, you were getting ready to interview someone. So, two-part question. Number one, how has this mastermind impacted your mindset and or approach to who to hire or how to hire? And number two, how has it impacted you to say, I need to be cognizant of how I operate to minimize retention in my world, or maximize retention in my world?
I think Mastermind, and by the way, I've lost video. I don't know what happened.
Okay,
but
good. Okay.
Is my picture on there at least?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Great picture too.
Okay, so for me, I think that how Mastermind has helped me is to think about the people around me and how I affect them as much as they affect me, and to kind of read by listening, by paying attention to details that I might not necessarily have thought about previously when I'm doing things like interviewing them or once I've hired them to work with them. One thing I learned in a supervisory class that I took years ago when I was in higher education was to always make sure that one of the first things you do with your team, whether it's a one-person team or a 50-person team, is meet as a group, but also meet individually and get individual as well as group expectations. And that is not just from like my own expectations, but also what are their expectations of me. And when TJ was talking about that with, Seth and his team and trying to work through that, that's the first thing that came to my mind is it's not just about what we think we need and to figure out and get updates, but it's also what do they need. And I think that is very much what you're saying with Mastermind as well. And I've lived by that. And so this is just reinforcing it, which is really good. When you talk about retention, is that what you were saying as the second part of this?
Yeah, the rest of it, and how that.
Yeah, with retention, I have found that to be really true. And I can say it firsthand. I don't have a team right now. I'm hoping to get an admin in the near future. But one of the things that I have found through lots of years of experience is no matter how big the team is, I had happier people on a larger team because I did sit with them and I would have regular meetings once a week with their supervisors. And then I would have individual ones with the ones that were not my immediate direct reports. And so what I found is when I didn't do that and I gave more autonomy because I thought they were able to get the autonomy, I didn't micromanage, but I just kept revisiting what are your expectations and these are mine. And I think the friendly reminders by doing it on a regular basis, more casual, is extremely helpful. But making sure that they know that they have that half an hour on a regular basis to revisit what my expectations are and what theirs are. And I think that that really has been proven on my end to increase retention firsthand, because I definitely didn't do that in my last job with one particular person, because I just knew they were independent workers and liked doing that, and I wanted to give them autonomy, and it just blew up in my face.
So it's interesting, on page 149, it talks about a recipe for retention. And number one, it talks about, I take responsibility for my relationship with others. Your last statement just validated that point, is that even though these were independent people, I still have to take accountability for building that relationship and making sure that the communication is being made in terms of your expectations.
Yes.
That is so powerful. Krista, I want to stay on that, because it kind of segues into lesson 18, and I don't want to go there yet, because I still think there's some gold that's here. When you talk about expectations, I literally had a conversation with myself today. Yes, myself. I was literally, I was talking out loud. And I said something to the effect of, I have to be cognizant of allowing myself or protecting myself from operating from other people's expectations. That I need to get in alignment with where I'm supposed to be in purpose, then get involved with people, learn their expectations in a way that I know that I can manage them more consistently, versus allowing my actions to be driven by everyone else's expectations. Does that make sense? Okay. So Krista, do you ever spend time with yourself, talking to yourself, evaluating those same expectations that you felt like wasn't handled in that past situation?
Absolutely, I do. I usually even write it down. I talk to myself in my head, and that's usually what's happening to me when I can't sleep at night. And then I make sure that I write it down. And sometimes I'll even write it down in the middle of the night so that I can revisit it so that I can sleep. But I find that it's very important for me to reevaluate how I handle the certain situation, not only for improvement, because I think there's improvement in anything that we do, but also in trying to figure out, was there something I could have done to make it a smoother transaction? Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that expectation thing is really big. And I think that sometimes we focus so much on pointing at other people's expectations that we don't even spend time to think about what the expectations we have for ourselves and other people.
Right. And that's one thing I have to say I've used for years. And it is, it's difficult sometimes to turn it back on yourself, but you have to keep yourself accountable as well as others.
Yep. TJ, any thoughts about that segment of the commentary, especially around making sure that your people know that you value them in the operations of what you do on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's essential, is to make sure that they know that you value them. It's something as simple as telling them, face to face, or, when you're talking with somebody about them, just talking them up and saying, man, they're doing a great job. I couldn't do it without them. Something along those lines, to where they hear you talking about them and you talk to them directly about how good a job they're doing. I think that goes a long way. That's something I try to be cognizant of to make sure I'm doing that. There's also different, you can reward them for doing a good job. I mean, there's, people are driven by different things. Some people it's money, some people it's, more time off, or, some it's just recognition. So it's, knowing what your employees like, and making sure to recognize them with what they would view as valuable.
Absolutely. Hey, Scott, I was looking at number 5 underneath recipe for retention, and it says, I recognize that my positive emotional health creates a secure environment for people. I know one of the things that you were talking about in the past was just dealing with some things internally that kind of impacted you, making sure that you were protecting yourself from the results of that in the future. Speak a little bit in terms of how you approach your emotional health towards your business and how you manage your relationship with people.
Well, I guess as far as my emotional health, I kind of keep that out of other people's lives. I mean, because when I'm working with customers and clients, it's, you know, it's about them, not really about me.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I guess as a salesperson, you do end up spend up a little time talking about yourself, but you really kind of, I try to make my whole focus about them, you know, as much as I can. So yeah, as far as, I guess I kind of like this chapter because you kind of explain your experience. You learn, and you learn from your mistakes, and then you learn how not to make the same mistakes, you know, in the future. I mean, if you if you keep making the same mistake over and over, then you're definitely doing something wrong. And
Right.
I did like the mention of, you know, well, you got burned by doing this, so you just don't do it anymore. And I'm like, you know, maybe it's the way you did something. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe there's a different way to approach the subject that would get you a different result. So, you know, don't say that this automatically doesn't work. Maybe it's something in you're doing. So, like, the primary example is Keller Williams. When we look at, you know, say our prospect or some or different things, you know, someone who's not getting their results. You know, say telemarketing, and you'll get. I've had people say, "Well, I'm not good at lead generation on telephone." And I said, well, you know, let's look at how many calls you're making versus how many appointments. And so it breaks down. If you look at the amount of calls, the amount of answers, and then the amount of appointments they get, you can pretty much see where the problem lies, which particular section. And maybe it's they're not calling enough. Maybe they need to work on their script more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Hey, Nanette, over on page 150, the last one related to the recipe for retention. I maintain a teachable spirit and nurture my passion for personal growth. That has you all over it.
Yeah, I did highlight the last sentence, which was, if I keep growing, I'll never become the lid on the potential of my people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, and I've been always one that says, you know, we're going to ride in the front seat of this roller coaster. And so if you're going to hang with me, we'll hang on the front seat. Now, I don't literally like the front seat of the roller coaster. Okay, it's not literal.
But it's okay for you to jump like down buildings, right? Propel down buildings.
You know, that's that's easy. That's easy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right.
And it's really a lot of fun too. But I can sit in front of a roller coaster. I just choose not to. But yeah, you know, if you're gonna try to outgrow me, we're gonna do some crazy stuff together.
Well,
Look out, world.
Yeah, when you align yourself with people that want to quote unquote outgrow your growth, and you can come together for a particular purpose and mission, you're exactly right. It can become a powerful team.
One thing that I was listening to my a call this morning. We don't, and it was on, it's I don't know, I put it somewhere on Facebook, but in one of my close groups. We don't know. Okay, so when we go to rewriting what our goals are and what we want to do, you know, when we say, okay, well, this time in our 2-year goal and our 5-year goal. Okay, our 2-year goal we overestimate, like Gary says, and our 5-year goal we underestimate. So because we don't know what we don't know, right? I mean, we only see what we have, our potential is right now, right? We don't see what our potential could be by doing the plan and doing the daily activities. So we don't see what it could be. what could be happening to us. Our daily plan, our daily list of things to do is kind of I'm kind of digressing, but we don't see where we only think of what we can see. We don't know what we don't see. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. It does. And it's really interesting. I'm going to go ahead and segue over into lesson 17. Experience is not the best teacher. A lot of this conversation has been talking about spending time to really reflect on things that are happening. Are we being intentional about, TJ, meeting with our team and really going over what did work, what can we do better? Are we meeting with ourselves as individuals to reflect on, am I really getting out of whatever it is that I'm in, what I should be getting out of it, and is it in alignment with where it is that I want to go? Am I taking time to reflect on the wins and the challenges in a particular situation? And all of this type of reflection marks us, and it talks about how will experience mark you. Experience teaches nothing, but evaluated experience teach everything. Reflection turns experience into insight. So I'm going to move back to Krista for a second. Krista, do you spend time intentionally, non-intentionally, really in reflection on what's happening on a week-to-week or month-to-month basis?
I am guilty of not doing that. And I need to.
Mm-hmm.
I know that contradicts what I just said about, when you said, do I, look at my expectations and things like that. But when I think of reflection, I think about really diving in and looking at the big picture and then looking at the individual things. Whereas when I'm just looking at my expectations, I think that's limited. Whereas what I think you're looking at is, let's do a reflection of the whole person. And I have not been doing that.
Yeah. Let me pause for a second, because I find something very interesting. And this is kind of putting the mastermind on pause for a second, but yeah, I think it's important to share. Paul Martinelli is the president of the John Maxwell team, and we're going through a study called Think and Grow Rich, and it really talks about vibration and how people can get on flow with each other. And so we've been having a conversation just within the last 30 minutes about letting people know their value, right? So I get an email literally as I'm sitting here from a gentleman by the name of Donnell Woodson. And he basically, I'm only going to read you a short part of it. It just says, "Morning family, I continue to be amazed, even awestruck by the caliber of friends, relationships I've been afforded in my lifetime. The integrity with which each walk through life is inspiring. Commitment to career, people, calling, and family have become my personal inspiration." That is an example of what it is that we should be doing for other people. And I don't find it to be coincidental at all that we're having a conversation about adding value to people and that email comes through. I mean, I could not have planned that even any better. It's just absolutely amazing. And so when you read Think and Grow Rich, thoughts become things. And when you're on a vibration where you're looking to add value to people, stuff like that happens. And this is not the first time that this has occurred since I've started this study. So I'm really beginning to understand the law of vibration and really speaking into existence things that you want. And that the law of vibration really does distinguish between positive, constructive things and negative, destructive things. It operates in the same law. So we've got to be very cognizant of how we approach not only ourselves, but how we approach other people. So that was just something personally that just happened, and I really wanted to share with you guys. So thank you for allowing me that minute and a half to do that.
Thank you for
sharing. I really
sharing.
thought that you guys would be impacted by that. So Krista, one of the things that I do that I share with a lot of my coaching clients is the first Saturday of every month, I reserve 3 hours to meet with myself. Okay. And I ask myself 3 questions. Number one, what did we accomplish? What went well in that month? Number two, the budget, looking at monetary, how we did financially, where it is that we need to go, et cetera, et cetera. And then number three, what are our goals for this coming month? And it's the same conversation each and every time, so that there's some intentionality to my thought process and allows me to reflect on the things that's going to help me grow and move forward the way that I want to move forward. And so that's definitely one of the things that I would challenge you with, not necessarily a first Saturday thing like me, but getting into the habit of spending some quality time with self to reflect on experiences that give you insight moving forward, especially as you bring someone new into the fold.
Yes, I like that a lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I've written goals, but and that's one thing I should know as being a former supervisor is I need to look at them and, I have them in my head, but I haven't narrowed them down by month to really say, okay, this is what I have to do this month.
Mm-hmm.
Not thinking about the dead time in real estate. So I think it's very important for me to do that. So thank you for that. Those 3 points are really important for me to consider and the reflection beforehand.
Yeah. TJ, you have talked about, you have a morning ritual they started. How do you go about, as part of that ritual or even the night before, making sure that you're gaining wisdom and insight with the activities that are happening?
Yeah, so spend some time, in reading my Bible and journaling, and then I spend some time writing out my goals. So I typically write out my 3-month goals and then my 3-year goals, just so that way I've got more of a short term. I can kind of tell where I'm going on track. Then I've also got the long term, where I want to go, and it goes along with, I think Nanette said it earlier. We underestimate what we can do in 5 years, but we overestimate what we can do in 1. It's along that same kind of principle where, it pushes us out, a little bit farther, but it also keeps us focused on, what we're doing right now to achieve those 3-month goals.
Yeah. Scott, I was looking at gaining from experience, and actually I kind of skipped over something that I wanted to kind of ask you about. One of the things that was mentioned was a notebook where journaling was happening, kind of helping people with remember their thoughts or strategies or things that they wanted to go. Do you do any type of journaling? How do you keep a historical record to reflect on where you've been, where you are now, where you want to go? Or is this something that just kind of walks around with you all the time?
So I can be a little bit inconsistent about it. I initially started off with books, and what interesting enough is I'll see something I like as far as the journal book goes. If it's nice looking, I'll go ahead and buy it. But I find that I'm bad about using them because it's hard for me to go back and find them or to keep track of them, that kind of stuff. So what I started doing was you basically created just a Google Doc, and using the date or whatever to pull up for that date, and that way it's easier for me to go back to reference it for individual days. And this way, no matter where I am, no matter what I have going on, I always have that document with me. I can either pull it up on my phone or by my computer or my tablet, whatever, and add to it. Unfortunately, I'm still a little inconsistent. I need to be more purposeful. I feel like lately I've been letting a lot of personal things get in the way of my schedule, my being purposeful on my whole day.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of my, when I do my morning routine, part of my morning routine is to spend a few minutes journaling each day and to think about the day, think about what happened yesterday and think about what I want to happen for the week or for the year or, whatever plans I need to make.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump back to, I believe it was our last mastermind session that we did, and we were talking about prioritization and scoring. is that something that you said there's a lot of personal things that are kind of getting in the way per se? And this is not asking for details or anything like that. Is it something where those are also important and urgent, or is it something that's been driven by other people's expectations?
Sometimes a little bit of both. There are things that come up that, even though it's whatever time of day it is, you still have to come and deal with it. And then there's other people's expectations. And sometimes it's just me allowing things to distract me from what I, want or need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I try to, I mentioned before, I try to set up a schedule for my day and try and stick with that.
Mm-hmm.
I probably am at about a 60 or 70% accurate on that right now.
Would a bunker help? Do you have a bunker, meaning physical as well as technology bunker?
Not fully, but a lot of times this things that, well, a lot of things that get in the way start before even my work day technically starts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Nanette, it was talking also in gaining from experience. It talks about the lack of experience is costly, and experience is also costly, right?
Yeah.
And so you and I, we go back for a minute, and so I've had an opportunity to see front row seat view of both of those for you. How you wanted to kind of move in a certain area and that was being prevented because of the experience or lack thereof that you have. And then sometimes the experience that have gotten you to where you are now has been is asked for a very heavy price, right? That makes you feel, does that give you the confidence and the competence to make you feel strong and courageous as a leader moving forward, understanding that in a lot of ways you have paid a very big price to sit where you sit?
Well, it's interesting that you brought this up, because on page 158, the part that I highlighted was, you just have to hope that the price is not greater than the value of the experience that you gain. And sometimes you can't judge what the price will be until after you've gained your experience. And my first thought was, well, that sound reminds me of marriage. That's kind of like, anyway. But yeah, I digress. All right. Yes, definitely. I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. Hell with the tornado, hell with the torpedoes. So, and I'm going to hope, and this whole process is, I'm hoping that, I'm going to get where I'm going, and I think I'm going to start taking it to church again. I think it's got a whole lot to do with faith. Because it says, when Moses took the people to the promised land, it says somewhere in there in the Bible, it says, and they arrived, and by faith they arrived, and by faith they arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a lot like that. By faith I arrive. I'm going to arrive by faith. And so it's a lot of risk taken, but it's a whole lot of faith and understanding. And so I think that's done. It's not me just jumping off the building. It's because I know that I'm harnessed in, and that there's a lot of other people, and I'm not going to fall. I'm not going to break my neck. Yes, it looks like I'm jumping over the building, but actually I'm pretty safe, and it's because it's a calculated risk. It's an educated risk. And so here's where you have to hope that the price is not greater than the value of the experience, with a calculated risk. And yes, I am telling you that the value of the experience far outweighs the price. If I needed to rewrite the check of the loss to gain the experience again, I would.
It takes a very strong and mature person to have that perspective. I know that's a biased response in terms of whether or not you would agree with that. Yet that's something that has to be pointed out, right? That there's strength and maturity that has to happen to have that.
It doesn't happen accidentally. No, you know,
it doesn't happen accidentally. Talk more about that.
I could have very easily taken a different route. And there are many other people that have been in very similar situations as I have and have taken a different route, you know, and they look at it a different way. I mean, this is consistent in everywhere, you know, where you've got one sibling, the whole family is dysfunctional, and one sibling raises above that and the others all sent there and, you know, repeat the same dysfunctional behavior in their own families. Mm-hmm. And that's because that person was intentional. They were just made different and grabbed a hold of that God-given purpose, you know, and changed their ways. Everybody has a God-given purpose, and some of us just choose to, you know, explore that, and others just are okay with the status quo. Mm-hmm. You know, and so I think it's just a matter of gaining, you know, it's what's inside you. It's not all me. Okay. It's getting hold of what's inside you, you know, and then, and connecting to that.
Yeah. Hey, Krista. So on the bottom of page 149, one of the other items that was underneath gaining from experience is evaluated experience lifts a person above the crowd.
Wait, which page is this?
Page 159.
Which see, I have different numbers than you, so which lesson are we on?
So we're in lesson number 17.
Okay.
Not the best. And underneath the gaining experience section, there are 6 bullet points for that. And then the 6th bullet point is evaluated experience lifts a person above the crowd.
Yeah, I don't have any of that.
Okay. Anyway, I can set you up on that. It's basically
okay.
So for me, I spent a lot of time in my head. I've gotten a lot better about not allowing that to paralyze me. And that has a lot to do with having great people around me that are driver behaviors, like, David, get out of your own way and go do what it is that you need to do because you're ready to do it. Just do it. Don't know what you're waiting on. This, that, and the third, right?
Right.
And so I have individuals that speak into my life that help me with that evaluated experience. I spend time in my head evaluating those experiences, and I learn from others' experiences. I love this story about the bear, the fox, and the wolf, because of the fact that I do really make an attempt to learn from other people's experiences. Not that I wish good or bad on them. It's just I pay attention to a lot of, more so than most people. Okay. All of those experiences has impacted me in a way where when I see evaluated experience lifts a person above the crowd, I feel at times isolated because of the fact that I don't think that a lot of people understand nor want to go on the journey that I'm going on for growth and expansion and moving better to be a great leader so that people are not catching up with me so that I can continue to lead. So it's not so much that I don't have people in my world. It's just that those numbers are small. And so I say all that to say, you had made mention about protecting your space, right?
Yes.
Can you appreciate that statement that I just made in relationship to your goal, and your goal with your partner is to move above the crowd because there's things that you want to achieve, and because of that, there might be separation from other individuals?
Oh, definitely. I can see that very clearly. Yes.
Yeah. So, Scott, would you feel the same way about that?
Yes, yeah, I would. Feel, you kind of got to separate yourself from some of those things.
Yeah. TJ, how about you? Have you experienced that in your life where as you were growing, you found yourself kind of pulling away? There was like a natural pull where the group of people that you would have spent a ton of time with, that all of a sudden, as you began to evaluate you and evaluate your experiences, it wasn't as important as it was in the past.
Yeah, I feel not necessarily that I pull away from certain groups, because I typically surround myself with pretty solid people that are going to be pulling me up. But sometimes I feel myself pulled more towards, somebody that's doing something in a particular area that I'm focusing on. So if somebody, if I've really been focusing on leadership, it seems like somebody, that's a good leader gets pulled into my life, and I kind of start getting more involved with doing stuff with them, even if it's not intentionally, or you happen to be at the same events or doing the same type of things. And it's like, it's kind of just one of those things. It's kind of like that law of attraction, you attract what you're looking for. And, they talk a lot about the reticular activating system, how the stuff that you're looking for, ends up showing up more in your life because your brain's. So I see that often in my life. One of the things just recently, Seth and I, Seth's my production manager, we've been talking about, trying to figure out how we grow our team. And if, we hire another, like a junior loan officer to help me with some of the other offices. And I had 3 really solid candidates just show up, out of the blue. I made a job offer to one of them, she accepted it, ended up, backing out and deciding to go a different way. But it was just kind of funny. I hadn't posted anything. I'd never, reached out to anybody saying I was looking. These 3 people just came up and said they were interested. And it was just, it's funny how stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow, that's cool.
Thoughts become things.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So
our cells, what is it? Our cells
Drop our thoughts.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of studying, even in the health arena, how a lot of functional practitioners are talking about getting down to the cell level for health, and that you can vibrate good cells inside of you and you can vibrate bad cells inside of you, and they operate on the same law. And it's just interesting how there's a lot of clues to this world that the Creator has left for us if we will just pay attention.
Yeah.
And evaluate. It's really interesting. It's very, very interesting. So
a lot of people don't pay attention. That's for sure.
No, they don't. And that's the reason why you have books like Intentional Living and the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, because there has to be intentionality around this. Nanette said it. It's like, but you have to be intentional to grow from those experiences and to mature. There has to be intentionality around it. And so it almost to the point where it's frustrating sometimes when you have individuals that you truly love that are in your circle and you understand that it's a routine and they're going to do that routine and they're going to continue to do that routine because that's how they were programmed. And I'm not saying that I'm still completely, that I'm removed totally from that, because there's a lot of deprogramming that has to happen first before reprogramming occurs. But yet you just have to take a step. And sometimes the smallest step can get you moving forward into the biggest direction. And so I think for us as leaders, not necessarily leaders in having a team or an organization, but as leaders in our circle of influence, we can show individuals that it is challenging in what we do, yet safe. That, the world is not going to end if you fail. That there are our best days are ahead of us, not necessarily behind us. There's a lot of positiveness to taking steps to get outside your comfort zone and still operating your strength zone. So I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that people are paying attention to us. And that email that I got earlier today is a perfect example of that, where we do lead people, whether or not it's in an organization or not, and we've got to be cognizant of that. Pages 162 and 163 just talks about some application exercises. So that would be at the back of that lesson, Krista. How often do you pause to reflect on your experiences? I think this is something that I would challenge you guys to put on your calendar. I have a coaching client that sets an alarm at 7:45 p.m. every day, and she spends 15 minutes writing down the 3 most important things that she's got to get done the next day before anything else happens. But she had to be intentional about it. She had set it on the calendar. She had to have an alert for it, because she knows that she gets busy and it totally distracts her, to the point now where if she doesn't do it, it messes up her whole chemistry. And so she really understands the importance of doing that and doing it consistently. It's the same thing for my first Saturday. The first Saturday is coming up this coming Saturday, and I have a plan to go and do some community service in Atlanta this weekend. And so I've kind of gotten ahead of the game, and I'm going to do some of that exercise today, is looking at budget and looking at my target clients that I want to reach. So that kind of relates to real estate. It also relates to the mortgage business. Are we spending time not just focusing on who we're currently working with in our files? Who are we targeting, and who are future business that we can obtain? And really booking time to reflect on where we are currently and the pipeline of where it is that we want to build. So I really challenge you guys to really spend that time, because I think sometimes we have to feel like that we're working for it to be productive, versus taking time to just be in a state of reflection and assessment of where we are and where it is that we want to go. So I give you guys permission to understand that you don't have to be moving and using your hands to be productive and moving forward where it is that you want to go. And then challenging Scott to make sure that he gets back to journaling and really writing down the things that he's learning and experiencing as he's going through the process. Number 3 is a really big one for me. How do you evaluate your year? One of the things that I have mostly done, and I will get consistent as I get more control over my time and being in alignment with my purpose and vision, is I usually, the last Friday before Christmas is usually the last day that I work for the year. I really get into reflection and spending time with my family and thinking about what the next year is going to bring. And so during those that week and a half period last year, I came up with the word healthy. I wanted to be healthy in my spirituality. I wanted to be healthy in my relationships. I wanted to physically be better. I wanted my money to be better. I want my business to be better. And I wrote out vision statements and mission statements around those things. And that's just not something from a clarity standpoint that can happen within 2 hours. It's something that you need to reflect on, and being around great people in your life to help you develop those things. And so, Nanette, I know one of the things that you're doing is the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership Mastermind. You guys are just doing like a little book club around it, right?
Yeah, we completed that last week. We completed the 21 laws last week.
I think one of the things that would be really good is challenging people in a group. Over in the mentoring moment on page 163, it says, ask the people you're mentoring to schedule a weekly time of reflection to evaluate their experiences. For a period of time, ask them to meet with you or email you monthly to give you the highlights of what they've learned. So this would actually bring some accountability to having the conversations around reflection and recording and making sure that the lessons are being learned and applied for the purposes of growth.
You know, it's interesting that you brought that up, because that has already been a discussion. I have already set that in motion, and with some willing participants, and that will start on June 6th, I think.
All right.
After we finish this mastermind, then we're going to break it down to some accountability meetings, less than, for lack of a better word, with some structure. So yeah, we've already moved into that direction.
Yeah, I know. Just kind of like follow up as well for all the ears that are on the on today's mastermind. Nanette and I are having conversations to start thinking about how I can get to the Lynchburg area or Central Virginia area to do a Maxwell event, a certified Maxwell event. We're targeting September for that. TJ, I definitely wanted to get with you at some point to get McLean involved because McLean has such a presence in that state. And I really believe that we can partner into bring value to your current and potential clients. I think there's a lot of focus on real estate and the mechanics of it. And we don't necessarily focus on who we need to be as people to grow, to be able to hit the goal. And so what I'd like to do starting this fall and definitely throughout 2019 is challenge agents to a different dynamic, a different paradigm to how they do business. And understanding is more than just the mechanics of the business that's going to help them be successful. So we'll keep you guys updated with all of that. But as for today, that's all I have. We're going to skip lesson 18 and let you guys read that about meetings. We're going to get together same time next week, covering 19 to 21. Okay. Any questions for anybody?
Sounds good. I don't think I'm going to be able to be here next week. I've got a conflicting appointment, so I don't think I'll be able to make it, but I just want to give you a heads up on that.
Well, we'll definitely record it, and then that will make sure that you have access to that.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Right. Krista, good to see you.
See you all next week.
All right.
See you
Y'all be
guys.
well. Take care. Have a good one.
Thank everyone for their time, and it was really good, and we'll see you next week.
Absolutely.
Sounds
Take
good.
care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.